A pleasant good morning to everyone and welcome once again to another edition of the Carlos Brown Show. Heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Today's guest menu looks like this. Willa Brown, you remember him as the former Director of Athletics at Jack State University, now employed at Fort Valley State. He'll join me. I just want to get his perspective on, of course, what's going on in the HBCU landscape and college athletics. After Willa Brown, I may have a special guest. I'll just leave it at that. And if this guest comes through, wow, it'll bring back memories, a lot of memories. We'll also have Coach Van Pettaway. He'll join me as usual on the Carlos Brown Show. And after last week's absence, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network will join me in hour number 2. A lot of stuff going on in the world of college athletics and HBCU sports, but here's what I picked as trending. Southern University releases their revised 2020 football schedule. They now will open against Alabama A&M on the road. So basically the conference schedule and homecoming. Also, the Southwestern Athletic Conference announces a virtual football media day. You heard right here on this show. Dr. McClellan talking about that. Well, it's going to be a virtual SWAC football media day. Elsewhere in the conference, congratulations to Donald Reed, named the new director of athletics at Prairie View A&M University. Southern University's Travian Scott named to the 2020 NCAA Pathway program as well. That's what's trending. Plus, there's talk of, and at this point, Bethune-Cookman to the SWAC. COVID-19 is still undefeated. Clemson, 23 players tested positive for the COVID-19. Texas, 13 players. SMU. Now, universities and athletic departments are requiring athletes to sign a risk form, waiver. The impact of these cancellation games, HBCU. Is it safety over finance or economics? 3 minutes after 10 a.m., I'll check in with Brother Prince. Brother Prince, good morning to you, sir.
Well, good morning, sir. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good. Can't complain. How about yourself?
You know what? I dare not complain. Another day that was afforded to me through grace and mercy, so I'm going to take it and run with it.
I understand that. Well, last week, right before I came on the air, producing this program, this radio show, I talked about Coach Banks at Southern University, Director of Athletics, talking about the Bayou Classic. And I had to go back and look at the Southern University Board of Supervisors meeting. And it's long, brother. Oh, it's long. But I'm sure all the board meetings are long.
They usually are. Trust me. I serve on a couple of boards.
And so, it's on YouTube. Just go and I say, let me just speed it up a bit. I saw a couple of people I hadn't seen in years. I politely waved at them from afar. And so let me get to the part where Coach Banks talks about the Bayou Classic. So, with that being said, he basically said what I said on the air last week, that it wasn't going to be played, the Bayou Classic, in New Orleans, okay? And they got some options out there. Shreveport Independent Stadium, Tiger Stadium on the campus of LSU, and A.W. Montreux Stadium. So then the story broken in. There were counter stories that came out talking about, well, it's officially hasn't been moved out of New Orleans. But if you go back, the mayor of New Orleans talked about no large events in New Orleans for the year. So with that being said, now it comes to the point, and you had other articles, New York Times, locally articles saying that, well, wait a minute, it's officially still hasn't moved out of New Orleans. And here's an official statement from the NOCCI, and they are the company that produces the Bayou Classic as far as the festivities and all of that good stuff. No official decisions have been reached as it relates to any details regarding the Bayou Classic 2020 and 2021. The Southwestern Athletic Conference Council Presidents and Chancellors have a June meeting where matters related to fall sports will be discussed. We appreciate your patience and hope to have more info in the coming weeks. Rest assured, we will be the first to let our Bayou Classic family know when any official decisions have been reached. Now, that's the official statement from the New Orleans Convention Company Incorporated.
Damage control.
You can say what y'all want. Coach Banks never said that it was not going to be a Bayou Classic, but with social distancing and that plays heavy into fans in the stadium,
right?
And New Orleans was a hotbed as far as COVID-19. And by the way, you see how it's in Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida.
Just about got all us covered, brother.
Yeah. So, and if you go out, for those of you who have to go out, you can see some people just have this relaxed attitude. No mask, not practicing social distancing and what have you. And you see what's happening with Clemson and Texas, and these are programs that have mega resources.
Right.
And you still can't get it. You're not going to get it under control. So I understand what Coach Banks said, and some on social media are like, well, it was a bit premature. Shouldn't have said it. I understand that.
What makes it premature though? With everything that's going on, why is that so premature?
Well, I don't agree that it's premature. I don't. But what I'm thinking is and when I've interviewed him a couple of times, like Coach Forbes, the safety of our student athletes and our young men and women, that is important.
Yeah, it's extremely important. Now, we got another unique situation on our hands as far as the conference is concerned, right?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
I said, we have another unique situation on our hands as far as the conference is concerned. And that is, it was officially released from the conference that the absolute drop dead date was October 17th. But then they were expecting the Labor Day weekend to kick off as scheduled, which, of course, has been historically Prairie View, Texas Southern. And when you do that, when you got all these other games that have been canceled on the 5th and the 12th of September, because that's a conference game, that's going to have to come directly from the conference on the official cancellation and relocating of that game.
Just cry me a river, Dr. Prince. It's so much that is going on, and still some unknowns. And the best of plans, the best of universities that has the resources. And I don't have to give a long speech on our schools. We know the situation.
Right.
We know the situation.
At this point, brother, it's best to save face and just plan ahead. That's all you can do at this point. You have to prepare just in case with, in my mindset, I wouldn't even say a 50-50 chance of operating. Right now, it's more like a 25-75% chance of operating at this stage. But you got to have something in place just in case. But the reality of the facts and the direction that everything is pointing in, cash this joking in for 2021.
Well, some would say shut it down. I'm getting some feedback. Here's a listener says, "What's going on with Southern's Roman Banks and its miscommunication with New Orleans Bayou Classic Committee and Grambling about the status of the game?"
There ain't no miscommunication about that. Banks was being transparent, and they said, slow down, hold up. You want to keep people optimistic, keep people engaged, because once it's officially released that there won't be any fall athletics, people are going to shut down mentally, and they're going to start focusing on other things. And they're just trying to keep the interest, keep things going. So it wasn't no really miscommunication. If anything, they said, Banks, man, you shouldn't have said nothing yet, man, because we want to figure out what's going to be what. So I don't see it as miscommunication. I just think Banks was being transparent, got the news, and just trying to readjust the plan of moving ahead so you could try to, let your people know what's going on.
Well, and he was speaking, at the board meeting, Southern University Board of Supervisors. And, when you look then throughout the week, you see statements coming out, even from Southern University and Coach Banks. Nothing is official yet. Well, duh, we know that.
Right.
But let's just be honest. And I think Banks has always been transparent, and it seems to me his major concern is the safety of the student athletes. And then, of course, your fan base. Mm-hmm. You remember he was on and said game day will look totally different.
Totally different. But
and because you got an older fan base,
right?
And my first guest that's coming up in a few minutes, actually, he basically said, if you look at each institution in this conference, the fan base is older.
Right.
And I would agree with that now. And I've been in the conference, reporting for over a decade.
Be nice. Be nice.
And it is basically it's what I've seen. You have an older fan base, and they're getting older.
Right.
I'm in that category. The fan part of me.
Yeah, you're right.
So I don't think
you are in that category.
Well, thanks a lot.
Look, I am too.
And proud of it.
But you know what I've been learning, not only throughout this, and I don't know if you recognize this, I think that to a degree people want to be lied to. They like being lied to, led alone, instead of just hearing the plain truth. Here's where we are. This is what it's looking like. Make your adjustments. But people like to be dangled along and led down this what we call an optimism, and saying it's going to be, don't be so down, don't be so negative. It's not being negative. The truth is the truth. We're up the creek without a pedal, and that pedal is a cure. And until we get that cure, slow your rolls.
And when he was on the show, he talked about it. It was going to take 3 to 4 years to get back to the point where they're at now.
Right.
And I want to be fair. It's 10:14. The listener, he apparently disagrees. He says that it was premature because he didn't consult with his Bayou Classic partners about the game. He spoke unilaterally. Therefore, it was a premature statement. But Banks can't speak for New Orleans.
He was speaking to his board. He was speaking to his board.
But yeah, he can speak, and that's his allegiance is to
Right.
the student
He's speaking
athletes
to his board
at Southern University.
And when you're speaking to your board, you being on a couple of boards, the people that are assigned in the leadership roles, their job is to be transparent and lay it on the table with what is going on. Now, because it wasn't shared with the other constituents, they chose to hold their card. This man was doing his job to the people he is obligated to. And that's not the being premature part. That's because everybody wants to, do whatever they want to do and don't want to be the bearer of bad news. This man was reporting to his people, and now somebody else let that out. But if he's caught not being transparent with his people, you know what that's going to have him on the other end looking for a job.
And let's just be brutally honest. In my opinion, I don't think it's going to be played in New Orleans. I really don't. And the options that he talked about, those are one of the options he's going to have to look at.
It wasn't like he said the game was canceled.
No,
he just said the game would be relocated.
He said it wouldn't be in New Orleans.
Right. And so, what's premature about that? If you look at the data alone, New Orleans is a hotbed. There is no cure. It would be foolish to walk into New Orleans expecting to play the Bayou Classic for 2020. And if you're talking about getting ahead of the curve, all you're doing now is trying to put your plan in action. So you're not waiting to the last minute. Let's weigh out some other options right now. I'm not understanding that one.
Well, my thing is I'll agree to disagree. We'll agree to disagree on that one, because you're looking at the Southern Heritage Classic. You're looking at homecomings getting canceled, but they're having games. This whole situation is unprecedented. Everybody has a great plan until you, as Mike Tyson said, you get hit in the mouth. And the bottom line is this. If they're going to have a full season, if they have a shortened season, are you going or you're not? And that's what it comes down to. We can dress it up, sweeten it up, look at it any way we want to, but you got to do what's best for you and for universities, presidents, ADs. They got a challenge. Now, me personally, if I could wave a magic wand, or if I was in charge, I would seriously say shut it down. And then this time next year, May, June, hopefully it's a better situation. Hopefully there's a vaccine, there's a cure, and then you look at it. But our schools, they don't have a whole lot of resources. So yeah, the impact financial is going to happen. There's more to talk about, and we're going to hear from my other guests and their perspectives. So I'm going to take a quick time out. First guest scheduled, Willow Brown, Associate AD at Fort Valley State University. He joins me after this time out. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
Be the one with courage to fight child abuse.
All Texans must find the courage to fight child abuse.
Learn the signs and symptoms and report suspected abuse to appropriate authorities.
Learn and know these warning signs.
A child who undergoes changes in behavior, appetite, or routine.
Watch for unexplained injuries, a change in academic performance, or loss of interest by a child in regular activities.
Trust your instincts. If you suspect something, do something.
If you believe a child is in an abusive situation, please call the Texas Abuse Hotline at 1-800-252-5400.
Be the one with courage. To find your local Children's Advocacy Center, visit onewithcourage.org.
On behalf of children, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The birth of legends are storied in this conference. We must never forget our rich history. We now turn our gaze to the future. The new legends will emerge. New heroes to arise. The Southwestern Athletic Conference. Be our history.
Of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. I consider this next guest a friend, and I love him to death. I didn't hold it against him that he was the director of athletics at the school that's on my list of being the school that I just love to dislike. And that was Jackson State University. Now at Fort Valley State, Wheeler Brown. Wheeler, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Carlos. I missed the competition, but love the friendship.
Oh, I understand. I'm going to be straightforward. We love Jackson State. We love every institution in the conference. We love every black college and university, but we do like to be competitive. You're absolutely right.
Yes, indeed.
And it reminds me of, let me ask you this. If you got second place all the time, second place all the time, as a director of athletics, does that fits well with you, correct?
Say that again, Carlos. I'm sorry.
If you're director of athletics at an institution and one of your programs, boy, they're close, but they didn't kick the door in for the championship, but they get second place for a few years in a row, and overall a winning program. You would be happy with that, correct?
Oh, definitely, Carlos. No doubt about that. You know, we always, as administrators, we like to talk about windows of opportunity. Mm-hmm. And, we understand and realize that, those windows may not be there all the time. And I think you and I discussed it before. My motto has always been, you got to be in a discussion every year. And if you're in the discussion, then there's always a chance that, one particular year, 2 particular years, you're going to, catch lightning in a bottle. You're going to get over the hump, Mm-hmm. But until you've been on the other side and sat through some of those 2 and 9 and 3 and 8 and 1 and 10 seasons, that sort of thing, you never really cherish, you never really appreciate the 8 and 3, the 9 and 2, that sort of thing, the championship that comes along every now and then. So, sometimes, fans can get, they can be fickle. There's no doubt about that. And they think you're supposed to win it every year, that sort of thing. My thing is being in a discussion, and you guys have been in discussion for the longest time now, but I can understand the frustration of not getting over the hump. I can understand that, but all it's going to take is maybe 1 or 2 of those 4 and 7, 5 and 6 years to where you guys really appreciate those 8 and 3s and 9 and 2s, that sort of thing.
Well, Willa, you almost had me convinced. Because I was going to say, what is 2 and 9? What is 2 and 8? That's an abomination. Hell, 5 and 6 is an abomination.
Yes, it is.
6 and 5 just won't do.
No, it is not.
And 7 and 4 is horrible.
But I can understand. I can understand from a diehard fan point of view. You believe that you're supposed to be there, every year. And my thing is that, you guys are always in the mix. There's not a discussion that takes place about a SWAC championship and Southern's not mentioned in that discussion. Not at all. Not at all.
Discussion.
So,
yeah. Discussion. Well, I understand. But we have other pressing matters to discuss. If you're in the field of athletics, of course, you know what's going on, Wheeler. The pandemic, COVID-19 is wreaking havoc. Everyone has plans, and every director of athletics that I've talked to recently, they have a plan, but it changes almost daily, and you have to be flexible with those plans. Do you agree with that same sentiment?
You got to be fluid. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You got to be fluid, and everybody needs to understand that ADs don't make those decisions in a vacuum. The presidents are calling the shots, that sort of thing. The ADs are putting their best foot forward in terms of recommendation and things of that nature. But, it's always a consortium of people that are making that decision. So, I mean, the AD is the one that's got to sell it and got to be the face of that decision, and the one that's probably going to take the heat, from the alums and things of that nature. Why you guys doing this? Why you guys doing that? But like I said, folks need to understand it's not the AD's decision totally. And that's pretty much the bottom line. But you have to be cautious. The only certainty is the uncertainty at this point. And you kind of applaud those schools that have done their homework and feel that they are ready to make an announcement right now in terms of setting the season back or, canceling games, homecomings. I was reading where A&T and Winston-Salem State and a few other schools have canceled their homecoming festivities. Still going to have the game, that sort of thing. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of schools that follow that lead. And, but my mindset is that, you still got maybe about a month, before you really approach a drop dead date from my point of view in terms of the direction that, you're going to have to go. But it doesn't look good right now, to be honest with you, at all. And, as we go further and, you see cases starting to spike up again, that sort of thing. And, it's scary. It really is. It really is. And, you put the administrators in a precarious situation in terms of, trying to do what's best, for the students, but they also have to keep the faculty and staff in mind also. Yeah. A lot of those folks that work at these institutions, they're in that high risk category. And, while the young folks think that they are, impenetrable and all that sort of thing, and, think they can rule the world and all that stuff, and I did too, but you got a lot of people that are mentoring and teaching and working with these folks that are in the high risk category. So, you got to make sure that you're looking out for and taking care of them also.
Visiting with Willa Brown, Associate AD at Fort Valley State. Boy, look, I got listeners asking about Fort Valley. Do they want to? Do they want to? Fort Valley, Albany State, moving from NCAA Division II as a member of the SIAC to the NCAA Division I FCS as a member of the SWAC. I'm betting you that somehow money, a million reasons why that may be difficult, then maybe not. So I can't answer for you, but I'm asking you.
Okay. You are so right about that. Go ahead, Carlos. I'm sorry.
Well, no. I was saying, has there been any discussion about maybe moving up?
I don't think so. And, I think all of those schools that are in Division II right now, they're in Division II for a reason. And quite frankly, it's probably a lot of D1 HBCUs that should probably be D2 also from a budgetary point of view. And, the NCAA right now is making it really hard for schools to move up from D2 to D1. You got that $1 million price tag right off the bat. And, then when you throw in the cost of added scholarships and added personnel and, all the things that go along with that, you would take a $3 million budget, which is what we're working with at Fort Valley, and you would probably have to increase that threefold. And you just have to ask yourself, where are those millions of dollars going to come from? And, there's no answer to that. I think pretty much 99% of the other D2 schools are in the same boat. It's going to take a really great commitment. Now, if a conference office like the SWAC or the MEAC wants to come in and carry that $1 million price tag and take that off of somebody's plate, then, it might be a little bit more enticing in terms of trying to get somebody to make that move. But, you really, really got to take a long look at the expenses with that. And it's not as easy as it used to be. And I think the NCAA did that on purpose because there were too many schools that weren't ready to make that move that decided to make that move. And so they decided to make it a little difficult in terms of taking that task.
Well, Willa, I know you've seen the news, heard the news, FAMU to the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of information coming out. Some would say rumors about Bethune-Cookman, and they have some choices. If they want to stay in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, or do they want to leave? What do you think about FAMU moving to the Southwestern Athletic Conference?
Well, I think logistically it probably was a good move for them. I think from a travel point of view, it might make things a little easier for them. Not necessarily in the revenue sports of football and basketball, but, the other sports, the tennis, the volleyball, softball, baseball, that sort of thing. And, but I don't know that there is that big of a financial difference between being in the MEAC and being in the SWAC. I haven't seen, the numbers that were given to FAMU, from the SWAC, but apparently they were really pleased with those numbers and, they decided to make the move. I think, right away, them getting into the SWAC is going to generate a lot of excitement. And, but the real tale of the tape is going to be 5, 6, 7 years from now, or from the time that they get in, once the novelty of worn off, that sort of thing. And, so I think you got to put a wait and see on it. I don't know what to do. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No, I was going to say, do you think, in that word potential, the potential financial reward, they're in the conference, they're doing well, they get a chance to host a football championship, because football drives it, that, and then cutting their travel expenses. Those two things, but, potential earnings of financial reward of hosting a SWAC football championship, and along with, winning other championships in other sports.
I really, I'm kind of in a toss up with that. I really don't see one conference having an advantage over the other in terms of the MEAC and the SWAC. Having worked in both conferences, they're both pretty well run, that sort of thing. Your rivalries are your rivalries, no doubt about that. I think that, just as it was in the MEAC, you got your Norfolk States and your A&Ts and, those schools that travel real well. And I think, over in the SWAC, you go with your Southerns, your Jackson States, and, maybe one or two more. But, just like in the MEAC, there are a few SWAC schools that don't travel as well. And so I think from those points of view, those things are going to kind of even itself out. So, like I said, to me, it's a toss-up. But, I'm not the one making that decision. And, I trust that FAMU has done their homework in every way, shape, form, fashion. I don't think this is something that just popped up on the radar. I think it may have been on the radar even before the new athletic director got there. and because things just happen too fast, I think.
Yeah, well, I like to get different perspectives. I don't get anybody on all the time that agrees all the time, and I'm getting some text messages of saying that they really don't see where a family is going to cut their travel expenses down, and it's going to be interesting to see, as you stated, how all of this is going to play out. But they are in the conference. They're coming.
Mm-hmm.
So they've made the decision to do it. So it'll be interesting. And I know you have some loyalty to the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. Am I fair for saying that?
Well, yeah, I'm an A&T grad.
I know that's right.
A&T back in the 70s. And, and I worked as an administrator at A&T for about 8-9 years, that sort of thing. So, naturally, I got a little bit of, heart pull in both. And, but I've had a chance to see both conferences intimately in terms of the inner workings, that sort of thing. And, it's really not a whole lot of difference between the two. And like I say, it's just a matter of, what flavor you want today. You want vanilla, you want chocolate, So, like I say, they chose they chose their flavor, So.
Well, how about milk chocolate?
I heard that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. This is very interesting. Visiting with Willa Brown, Social AD at Fort Valley State.
But I will tell you this though, Carlos. If Bethune-Cookman comes in and they move both Jackson State and Alcorn over to the west, if I'm either one of them, I ain't too happy. We're having to fight you guys to get to the championship every year. That's for sure. I'm telling you.
Well,
I wouldn't be a happy camper if I was either Alcorn or Jackson State. I'm not a happy camper at all. That's for sure.
Well, I'll tell you this. I can not speak for one fan base, but I know one fan base wouldn't have a problem if they had to play Southern all the time. But then that same fan base, they literally been playing Grambling and Southern, even being in the Eastern Division just about every year. But now playing against Grambling, they have not had an easy time at all.
Not at all.
But guess what? I guess that's what a rivalry's supposed to be. You go back and forth, win some,
that's true.
You lose some. but if you're 1-11, that's just a difference. Just throw it out the way. Just throw it out of the way. Got to be competitive.
Yes, indeed. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Well, I tell you what, Will, if someone said, no, I couldn't work for you if you were the director of athletics, talking about me. I don't know.
Yes,
I think I would be fair.
Yes, you could. You could. My thing has always been, you guys, my job is to give you the things necessary in order for you to be the best that you can be. But I'm going to hold you accountable for getting it done. And I've always been a firm believer that all of my programs should be in the upper third of the conference. And that means that, either first place, second place, third place. And like I said, when those windows of opportunities arise that you can get over the hump and get that championship, then I expect for that championship to be gotten. And, my thing has always been that, those polls that come out of the preseason polls, that sort of thing, where the coaches vote you here or the SIDs vote you there, that sort of thing. I think your coaching ability should be worth 2 to 3 slots above where they choose you. And if you're not able to achieve that, then you're not going to have some strong conversations at the end of the year. So I mean, and that's how I like to carry that. So it's always straightforward and up front. If the coaches and everybody pick you to finish fifth, I expect you to be either second or third. Period. And if not, then we got some issues we have to discuss.
And also, we must remember, if I can add this to the conversation, of course, we're talking about football. But if you have a true, outstanding athletic program, that means you're winning in not just football.
Yeah, that's true.
But you're winning in other team sports
and all
as well.
That's right.
So,
in all your sports.
As much as some will jump up and down, and rightfully so, for winning in one sport. That same enthusiasm should be winning in other sports as well.
Yeah, I mean, you take Alabama State, for instance, as a prime example. Yeah, they won the All Sports Trophy. They probably won it like the last 4 or 5 years in a row. Yeah, but they have no football championships, no basketball championships at all. Yeah, and I mean, but they win in all the other sports. They win in baseball, they win in softball, they win in volleyball. They win in tennis and track and field. For football and basketball, they're lost. I don't know if they lost, but they hadn't been getting, it done. But like I said, people forget about that, Carlos. They forget about that level of excellence. They forget about that level of excellence if it's not football and it's not basketball. So
well, it's the big three, and if you look at it, it's the big three. But in the grand scheme of things, you have to have winning programs that can compete and are in the discussion, and every so often get some championships.
Get it over the hump. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Now the question becomes, what happens if you're always competing, but you never get it over the hump?
Okay. Well, I'm gonna stop right there on that point because I can't beat a dead horse, and that's the fan part of me. But as a host part of me, you just put the information out there. Facts are facts. Opinions are opinions.
That's true. That's true. That's
and
true.
So if I make a statement, it has been good to be in the conversation, to be in the championship game a few years in a row. However, then a comma, it would be nice to win a championship, wouldn't it? It would, at the end of the day, it would be nice to win a championship.
Definitely. Oh, no doubt about that.
I've mentioned facts. The facts were getting to the championship 2 years in a row. Then my opinion comes in, it would be nice to win a championship.
But Carlos, like I said in the beginning, you won't appreciate getting to that championship until you go through some 4 and 7s and some 5 and 5s, that sort of thing. Where you coming in third place, fourth place, that sort of thing. Then you will really appreciate those 2, 3, 4 years in a row where you guys were continually knocking on the door for a championship.
Okay. Okay, Will.
Be careful. Be careful what you
call me
for.
Call me spoiled, but
be careful what you wish for. The people start screaming. We're not winning the championship. We're not winning the championship, but we're right there. Let's hire somebody that's going to help us win that championship. Then you bring somebody else in there who go 4 and 7. When you're used to 8 and 3 every year, that sort of thing, then you would appreciate, like I said, those 8 and 3s a lot more. once you've been on the other side for a long time.
Well, I appreciate these 8 and 3s and 7 and 5s now, and also when you have to play up a lot, you don't even count those games.
That's true. Yeah,
I mean you're not going to win those. But
no, you're not.
As I've stated before, if you are happy with getting second place, then you're happy.
And it's not a matter of being happy, Carlos. It's not a matter of being, from an administrative point of view, from a coaching point of view. No, you're not happy. Of course not. You get that close, you expect to get it over the hump, that sort of thing. But at some point in time, you have to put it in perspective. You really do. You got to put it in perspective at some point in time. Was this championship appearance better than coming in fourth place in the conference? Was being in the discussion better than not being in the discussion at all?
I want my cake and eat it too. How about that? I want to be in the discussion. I'm just being honest. I want to be in the discussion, and then I want to tell recruits, which sounds a little bit better. I got to the championship, but I fell a little short, or I got to the championship. I missed out a couple of times, but guess what? Then I finally got it. I'm winning championships.
Yeah,
you can sail on either point.
Carlos, at the same time, Carlos, you tell that recruit, I got to the championship. We didn't quite get over the hump, but if you come, you're going to help me take that next step. You're the simple. You're what I need in order to take that next step. Come on in here.
Yeah, I watch where I'll be walking too.
You can spin it 1,000 ways, Carlos.
Mm-hmm. just like you're spinning it now. Here we go. It's better to be 8 and 3 in that discussion than to be 4 and 7 or 2 and 8. I remember the last program team that was 2 and 8 in Baton Rouge, and it wasn't good.
You got that right. I'm sure it wasn't.
Didn't even make it through the season.
Yeah.
So I'm sure some will disagree with me, and I'm sure some will agree with.
Probably right. That's the glory of talk radio. That's the glory of having the medium that you have in terms of putting it out there.
And I will read listeners who agree and disagree.
That's right.
One listener, CT, says, "Man, win the championship if you can. Forget that second place BS." I don't know.
But until they've been on that other side, Carlos, until they've been on that other side, sometimes you don't appreciate it. And if you ever been in those coaches' shoes or been in the athletic administrator's shoes and have really scraped and scrapped in terms of trying to get them the things necessary to get over the hump, that sort of thing. You really don't appreciate it until you inside of it and really see the inner workings, that sort of thing. Anytime you're depending on 18, 19-year-old kids, Carlos, to get it done and reach that pinnacle, we all know that, it could go either way any day.
Well, now you understand, perhaps, and I'm sure you may have understood it before, why Southern fans are often called cocky and arrogant. I mean, 2 and 8, I'm like, what is that? 2 and 9, I'm sorry. Two wins out of 11?
Yeah.
Being on that side? When?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you would like to say those days will never come. Now, I know some institutions have seen plenty of those days and plenty of the years.
You got that right.
But I think you always seek excellence, and I'm sure every institution in this conference does, every athletic director, every student athlete, they want to win championships. I'm sure they do. When you get the opportunity, you get it done.
That's right.
And you can set the ball early. You can set the ball early. My last point here, and I appreciate the time, Willa. The Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, in your opinion, they will survive all of this?
I believe that if they keep Bethune-Cookman, they will survive. But I think if Bethune-Cookman leaves, it's going to be difficult for them to survive. And that's just my personal opinion. You know, because then you're going from 7 football schools down to 6. And, you know, with nothing new on the horizon. And I don't know what the plans are, that sort of thing. You know, so I can't talk about that. But, you know, if you just stuck with 6 football playing schools, it's going to be difficult to even call yourself a conference, you know, let alone be able to get things done. You know, so like I said, if Bethune stays, I don't think it'll be an issue. But if Bethune leaves, then I can probably see maybe a couple other schools trying to jump also. But the question becomes, jump where? You know, I mean, I could see maybe North Carolina Central and Norfolk State maybe trying to get into the Big South, but who says the Big South even wants them? You know, so I mean, I think the Big South got the school they was after, you know, when they were able to lure A&T. You know, so I think it stops with them from that point of view. And so, like I said, it's just going to be difficult all the way around. You know, then maybe they can get an associate member here and there, you know, for football playing only, you know, to jump in. Like, you know, I heard somebody talking about maybe Georgetown or something like that. You know, but I don't see it, but anything's possible.
Anything is possible. Well, I appreciate the time and coming on the show, and I thought about the time when I was in Jackson for that usual JSU and Southern University football game, and I'm standing on the outside. Then I say, "Look, that looks like Willa. You were on the golf course." And I appreciate giving me a ride right up into the side. I really felt special.
Hell yeah, definitely, Carlos. Definitely.
And felt even better after a Southern victory in that football game.
Well, I can tell you, I didn't feel too good after that, but
I understand.
That's okay. You know, but I've always been a big Coach Odom booster. You know, he and I go way back to like 2002, 2003, that sort of thing and stuff. So, you know, I've always been a big fan of his, and, you know, I've always watched him grow, you know, as a coach, and to see what he's done, you know, at Southern over these years. You know, I just think that, you know, he's really done a great job. He's really done a great job.
Yeah, he has. We give credit what credit's due. I would just whisper in his ear, "Coach, kick the door in. Kick the door in." Because you never know. Next year is never promised.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know. So, as Jesse Jackson says, keep hope alive, keep hope alive.
Yeah, keep hope alive. Yeah, we'll end it on that one. You enjoy the rest of your weekend and stay safe, Willa.
Thank you, Carlos. You guys do the same, man. And thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Willa Brown, Associate AD at Fort Valley State, joining us on the Carlos Brown Show. Oh, a lot of people, boy, just chiming in. My goodness. I could almost have a 40-minute segment interacting with text messages. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out. Did you see Coach Fobbs and his comment on Twitter about basically, look, need to shut it down. Volunteer workout. This is someone's kids we're dealing with. And that was in light of, I'm paraphrasing, in light of COVID-19 tests that a lot of the institutions have performed on their student athletes returning. And, of course, in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, basically everybody's returning to campus, in July. Clemson, 23 players test positive for COVID-19. That's 23 football players, 28 total. Texas, 13. SMU. You can go all over. Oklahoma State. There will be a moment when student athletes come back in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and they're going to be tested, and you're going to get the news back, positive test. As I recap hour number one, Southern University released their revised 2020 football schedule. And let me do this. Let me read a statement. Southern Athletic Director Roman Banks said he sought a plan that would consider the well-being of the student athletes while also being mindful of the potential institutional challenges in the wake of COVID-19. First and foremost, we are committed to and 100% focused on the safety, health, and well-being of our student athletes, coaches, staff, and supporters, Banks said. Pushing our start date back to mid-September gives our coaches more time to get student athletes acclimated and assesses and focus on their appropriate physical condition after such a long, unprecedented period with no supervised workouts. That's another thing to consider. They're working out on their own, but it's still not like getting in shape to play in the fall. A later start will also help accommodate a later than usual initial reporting date for football due to COVID-19 pandemic and the preparation that our campus is making in anticipation of a return to in-person instruction this fall. So with Southern, basically after an off week on October 3rd, the Jaguars will open the month of October on the road against Alabama State on October the 10th, but their first game will be on the road at Alabama and NIM. And then you have Alabama State on the road. Texas Southern will come to A.W. Mumford Stadium, not played in the Texas State Fair. Also, the Alcorn Stadium on October 24th. And that'll be a rematch of the 2018-19 Select Championship game. And as an update, Florida Memorial University for homecoming. Now, they're just bringing back football. The Jaguars then close out their regular season schedule with 2 of the 3 games on the road. Southern travels to Prairie View A&M on November the 7th, hosts the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff on November 14th before a bye week. And then, of course, Southern will conclude its regular season on November 28th against Grambling State in the annual Bayou Classic, which one listener says he's willing to bet it all that it's still going to be in New Orleans. Also, season ticket holders will be able to renew their tickets beginning Monday, July 6th, 2020. At this time, no individual game tickets are available for purchase. So, go back to our fan base. From what I have seen, it's an older fan base throughout this conference season at Southern University, and it'll be interesting to see if other institutions follow the same pattern. Season ticket holders will get first dibs. And those who decide not to, I've talked to some that will renew their season tickets, but they're not coming. An older age group, compromised immune system, but they still want to contribute by still getting the season tickets. And then, as Coach Banks stated when he was on the show, it's just going to be a different game day. He basically said if the season ticket holders, renew, you're looking at maybe 5,000, a little 5,000, 5,000, or a little less in the stadium for games. So that's going to be a financial hit there as well. So that's the deal with that. Also, the SWAC announces a virtual football media day Donald Reed named Director of Athletics at Prairie View A&M. And Southern Severian Scott named to the 2020 NCAA Pathways program. So, with that being said, that's it for our number one. What I would like to do, let me see if I can get, I talked about maybe a potential special guest. I'm going to see during the break if I can get that scheduled. If not, we'll come back with Coach Van Pettaway. So, on that note, take a time out. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
Hello, this is Alonzo Hardy Jr., the president of the SWAC Alumni Association. The SWAC Alumni Association is an organization founded on December 10, 1999, at the Sheraton Hotel in Birmingham, Alabama. Its mission is to serve as a rallying ground for individuals who have made the Southwestern Athletic Conference the illustrious conference that it is today. Its membership is open to former student athletes who played in the conference in any sport, as well as to coaches, athletic administrators, staff members, game officials, and fans. Annually, the association holds a Legends Awards and Roast Banquet or luncheon where it honors individuals with Lifetime Achievement Awards, a Chuck Prophet Wagon Master Award, and occasionally a Distinguished Service Award. Proceeds from that event help to finance degree completion scholarships for student athletes who have exhausted their playing eligibility at SWAC universities, but who may still need an extra semester or two to complete their college studies. For more information on the SWAC Alumni Association or to get information on becoming a member, you can send correspondence to SWAC Alumni Association, 875 Miller Creek Lane, Newport News, Virginia, 23602. The email address is swacaluminassociation@yahoo.com.
Come on, hustle, 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 hustle. Get your head in the game. Come on.
Are you setting the right example for your kids?
You need to get some confidence.
Before your child's next game, ask yourself, how would you like it if they copied your behavior?
Ad revenue has declined 15%.
Come on, you need to get some confidence.
Positive Coaching Alliance has valuable tips and tools to help our kids perform their best while keeping sports enjoyable for everyone. Positive Coaching Alliance, creating better athletes, better people.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
Right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. We're going to visit with Coach Van Pettaway. Always the highlight of the show with Coach Pettaway, the Coach Brown Show's basketball analyst and sports analyst and / just a guy who gets it to you straight. Coach Pettaway, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here, and I hope everybody's doing well and being safe.
Being safe, and Coach, tomorrow is Father's Day, correct?
Correct, and I'm very aware of that. And I'd like to wish all the fathers a happy Father's Day.
Yes,
because that's an awesome responsibility to be a father.
Yeah, and you're visiting with your father.
Correct? Oh yes. Been playing for quite some time. I shared with y'all earlier. I almost lost him with the virus, and so God has given us another ample opportunity to celebrate with him, and so we're doing it. My brothers are here from out of town, so all of us are from out of town, so we're here enjoying it.
That's great, because I know with me and Dr. Prince, physically, our father's not here.
Okay,
but that's a great thing that you're able to visit with your father.
Yes,
that's a great thing, and happy Father's Day to everybody out there tomorrow, because some have had to be fathers, mothers have have been mothers and fathers. So just appreciate what they've done, and somehow finally say this: some maybe not biological fathers, but still fathers.
Right, and those are the best kind. Those are the best kind. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's an awesome responsibility to be a father. And we're here celebrating with our father, because without him, we would be nothing. And you're talking about a man that he went to my first game and my last game. He traveled through the SWAC. He traveled through the SIEC. So he was very proud of the fact that I was coaching, and I was very proud of the fact that he was always there, because he laid the groundwork for our family. Yeah. And in light of, we just mentioned your first game, still from last week, that I didn't know it, but an opportunity to coach at FAMU. Yeah. Wow. But at the time, it wasn't a good move for us, for my family and I, financially, because at the time Alabama A&M was doing, they would treat me great, so it was hard for me. It was down to finances. And so we just had a better deal at Alabama A&M. But just to be in the mix and to have that contract in my hand, Dr. Humphrey he and I had a great visit. He was the president at the time, and he even invited me back to an alumni affair that they had that weekend. And he told the people, before I ever said that I would, he told the people that I was going to be their next coach. So, I had a great visit with them, and Dr. Reed was the athletic director at the time. So it was a great time in my life, in my career. Yeah, I can understand that. Coach, a lot of things going on as far as sports-wise, and a lot of different situations to talk about. But lo and behold, this week, Howard University Athletics announced the men's basketball team is set to host the University of Notre Dame on Martin Luther King Day, and there's going to be some other games as well. The matchup features Notre Dame visiting a historically black college and university for the first time in its program history. Talk about the significance of that. I think that's a great move. Howard University should be proud. They should stick their chest out. And then, of course, your hat has to be off to Notre Dame for them to even agree to that, because I'm going to be honest, that's one of the toughest things that we face on our level, on the HBCU level, is getting one of those major conference schools to come to your place. Like, I brought Alabama to Huntsville, but not to my arena. I had to play them at a neutral site. Mm-hmm. So that's a great win for Howard. Yeah. A win-win. There'll be some other games between HBCUs and non-HBCUs in basketball that's forthcoming. A listener wanted me to ask you, why did you consider or want the North Carolina A&T job? Well, the backstory to that, my uncle and aunt live in Greensboro. My uncle was on the board there at the time. I did not use his power on the board. I wanted that job because in 1975, I worked in Greensboro for that summer. So I was very familiar with the city. I was very familiar with the city, and of course, Coach Corbett, who was the all-time great coach at North Carolina A&T. I just felt like at the time that would have been a great fit for me. And to be honest, that's the job that I wanted. I wanted that job, but being a young coach, I didn't know how to handle the press. And so I said the wrong thing, not knowing that my comments for Florida A&M would get up to North Carolina. But it was a great time following Coach Corbin, and they had the resources. They had more resources than Alabama A&M at the time, and I just felt like it would have been me going home because I lived with my uncle and aunt for that summer while I worked, so I was very familiar with the area.
Yeah, interesting. Visiting with Coach Van Pettaway here on the Carlos Brown Show. I wanted to know that, so you answered that question. Could you talk about, as we see ESPN, four-star recruit Nate Tabor commits to Norfolk State, and the spirit of what's going on in the country. You're seeing a lot of, quote-unquote, highly talented basketball players now seeming to consider going to HBCUs. Is that something that you think will be not just from an emotional standpoint, but will be a continuing trend?
Well, I would hope so. I would hope that would be the trend because we need the HBCUs. We need these players to stay at home. We need them to come back to us. I wanted to go back to the days where our guys could not go to the major universities. Please put that back in where they don't go, because then you'll see a better brand of basketball, and your prize recruits can start staying at home. They don't have to think that the only way you can make it to the next level is go to a majority school. If you got the talent, and this is what you tell kids in the recruiting process, if you got the talent in today's time with all this technology, they will find you. If you shine, I don't care where you are, they're going to find you. The scouts, see, one of the things that helped me when I first retired, I started helping Coach Joe when he was the one of the scouts for the Knicks. So to travel all over the country and to see what they're looking at and what they're looking for, these people go everywhere. I've had NBA scouts to come to my practices at A&M. I've had them to come to games. So like I would tell a recruit, if you got the talent, they will find you. You've got to be in a position where you can display your talent. If you go in there to sit on the bench, how you going to display your talent? You still can't make it on the next level. And then you would always let those kids know the NBA is not the only way to make money. A lot of kids can go overseas.
You're absolutely right. And I know years ago doing the radio show, I would have fans, particularly, of course, coming to Southern University and the SWAC, but at Southern University, and they often talked about the style of play.
Right.
That was important to them. Yep. And then, of course, they would reminisce about the days, when Avery Johnson at Southern and Bobby Fields, Carlos Samples, and some of the way Coach Joe
Leonard White. Yep.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of Leonard White, one of my listeners said, what was it that? Oh boy! If that listener is listening, he sent me a message about Leonard White and how he actually got to Southern University. But if you can't remember, Coach, go back to what you said about recruiting him, and maybe it'll pop in my mind about.
Leonard was being recruited by a lot of major schools. He had his choice of schools to go to. Coach Job, smooth talking Coach Job, just got in there and convinced him that with his style of play, that it would be better for him to come to Southern University. When Coach Job signed Leonard, now you had some assistant coaches at the major schools lost their job because he was a big time recruit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the style of play Southern style of play is what convinced Leonard to come to Baton Rouge.
And that was my point, of style of play. And when you look during that time, and they've been some tremendous players,
right,
that have come through the conference. You remember Alfonso Ford?
Yeah, down the valley, yes. Yes.
Lindsey Hunter.
Yep.
You can go back even
Trey Johnson. Trey Johnson, you got and then if you want to go back, Wes Unseld passed. Who was his starting point guard? A Grambling grad.
Right.
Yeah, Coach Wright, Larry. Right. So there have been some great players that come through this conference. And my first time meeting Willis Reed, man, I was in awe. I'm in awe, and he's talking to me about my point guard, Willie Hayes. He says he's never seen a kid that worked as hard as that kid, and when he sat him down and talked with him, Willie came out the year Mookie Blaylock, who was at Oklahoma, came out. So he was supposed to be the top guard, and they both were with the Nets. And boy, Coach Reed, he had a number of great things to say about Hayes and how hard he worked. And Hayes told him, well, this ain't nothing. He said, our coach take us through way more than what we're doing here. So he was impressed with the kids' work ethic. And that's coming out of, once again, now coming out of a black school. So, it's the work that the kids put in. If they got the talent, they just got to continue to work. So, yeah, there have been some great players to come through this league, and there'll be plenty more.
Yeah. Visiting with Coach Van Pettaway here on the Carlos Brown Show. The listener says Leonard White's uncle called Southern University about Leonard White. So that's inside.
Yep.
To get him in. Also, a listener says, can you elaborate on style of play in the conference? Well, during that time, and particularly at Southern University, and Coach, you can comment as well, it was very up-tempo.
Correct.
Very up-tempo. Yep. What did Coach Job say? If I can get, 90 shots?
93.
93.
He said I could take 93 shots a game, and I could shoot a poor percentage, and I could still beat you because of the attempts that I've got. And for the most part, he's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
And I'm thinking that back in during that time, he's getting it done down at Southern. I'm doing the same thing up at Alabama A&M. But when you read it, they give all the credit to up-tempo play and stuff. They say Coach K. Well, we were playing like Coach K before there ever was a Coach K.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. You go back to the older days that when Cleo Hill and all those guys were playing. Man, with Coach Mack them they did up-tempo basketball. They're the ones that did it. When Dean Smith them wanted to learn something, even Coach K, they had those secret practices with those guys. They had secret clinics with those guys, with big house games and all of them. But they don't want that known because a lot of times they want to make sure that they get credit for being the mastermind. But they pick the brain of the guys that laid the groundwork for people like me to come into coaching. And that's true fact now.
Yeah, no, understandable. Could you quickly walk us through, maybe like at practice, since you're up-tempo, you were running the same style, I would think you had to have players that were in tremendous physical condition. And right. you had, I would think, 1 through 5, or at least 1 through 4 shooters.
Right. That's what that was a dream team if you could get 4 shooters on a team. But to be effective, you had to have at least 3. If you had 3, you could stretch the floor, you could create mismatches and get shots off. But in practice for us, 2 hours, 2.5 hours at the most. But from the first minute to the last minute, it was regimented. They didn't get stops. The only thing that I did during my career that I would go back and change, my breaks were too long. I gave 5-minute water breaks.
What?
There's not a 5-minute break in basketball.
Wow.
There's not a 5-minute break in basketball. So during my scouting days, I observed what other people was doing. No one. And one of the first people to tell me was Mike Davis. Mike said, Coach, I been want to ask you something. He said, I noticed I got one of your practice itinerary. He says, you gave your kids 5-minute water breaks. I said, yeah. I said, because I push them so hard, I figured they need it. He said, yeah, that's good. He said, but tell me in a game when they get a 5-minute break other than halftime.
Yeah.
And he had a very good point. And I had not seen that. So I would change that because everything was repetition. Being able to shoot free throws while you're tired. Well, if you set your practice up that way, it'll happen. They'll get used to it. They'll get used to walking that line after being winded. So you got to practice the way you play. I'm a firm believer in that. And the teams that try to change during the game, their true style, that's why they turn the ball over so much. If we can force a slow-down team into an up-tempo game, they'll have too many turnovers.
And tempo.
Right.
And I was looking at some old footage. To give credit to Steve Snyder, WAFB locally in Baton Rouge, looking at some of the like the blue and gold game, but a scrimmage, a major scrimmage. Southern divides the team up. Score was 151 to 148.
Yeah, hey, now I remember that because me and Coach Joe talked about it. Because I'm gonna tell you what happened. That's during the time when Troy set that record, and he and I were talking about it. And he said that he wanted to try to break that record, but he was going to do it in that scrimmage. And they went after. I think Troy ended up scoring like 162 or 72 points in the game, and he went after that. So I remember that very well.
Yeah, and you know, and going up, you know, when they won the conference, then you got in the NCAA tournament. Of course, Coach Job, Southern, and many others in the conference. That's still the style that they played even in those tournament games. Because, as you stated, that's the way you practice, that's the way you play.
Correct.
So no matter who the competition is, that's the way you're going to play. But style of play, it was really fast-paced. And then if you go further back, it wasn't in a three-point opportunity, three-point shots.
Right, and you got teams scoring 90 points a game, and there's no three-point shot. So that's letting you know they get up and down that floor. They letting that baby fly, and that's the way I like it, man. That to me, the game is exciting. That's what put fans in the stands. Well, in football, they talk about defense win championship. In basketball, you better have some offense.
Yeah,
you better have some offense to counteract that defense they're throwing at you.
Yeah, and because again, I've had people come up to me and like, well, I'm glad we won, but man, I like exciting basketball. So I said, wait a minute. So you would rather be exciting and lose? The guy was like, yeah. The guy told me, he said, I'm honest. I said, okay. That's all I could ask for, honesty. And then, his opinion. But there have been some tremendous talent come through this conference and basketball. And
some great coaches through this league. Yep.
Yeah, as well.
Yep.
Well, Coach, we appreciate the time as always.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Continue to be safe and tell your father Happy Father's Day for us.
I will.
And we'll talk with you next week.
Okay, thank you. And Happy Father's Day to everybody. Everybody be safe and God bless.
All right. Thank you. That was Coach Van Pettaway here on the Carlos Brown Show. I'm going to take the time out. A special guest. A blast from the past. He's coming up next. We're going to make that phone call, and we're going to get him on. Some of you are going to be shocked at who this next guest is. Now, I've said all that to say this. During the break, Dr. Prince was able to talk to him. We just kind of made the time a little bit better for him to come on. So we'll do that next. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
It's the Open Mic Network line. Dial 720-721-1558
And instantly at your fingertips, you have the latest local news, weather, and sports. Need a word of encouragement? Dial 720-721-1558. The Open Mic Tele-Network line features weekly prayer, verse of the week, and local ministries at your fingertips. Everything you need on demand. Dial 720-721-1558. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No internet, no problem. No Wi-Fi, no problem. No app, no problem. All you need to do is dial 720-721-1558 to listen now.
It's innovative. It's encouragement. It's empowerment. It's informative. It's inspirational. It's The Journey, a talk show that is guaranteed to come to you from a different perspective. Coming soon, The Journey, another production of the Open Mic Broadcast Network.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Boy, my next guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to bring him up right now. We've had some interesting conversation over the years. He is former Southern University Board of Supervisors, Chairman and Board Member Tony Clayton, Attorney Tony Clayton. Tony, good morning to you.
Carlos, man, how you been? It's been a while. We haven't argued in about 2 years, man. So how you been?
I've taken many beatings. I understand.
No, I've lost. I'm the one. You beat me up pretty bad. You control the mic.
Well, it's been a lot of history. A lot of history. We agreed. What would you say, 10% of the time?
I'm less than that, but Carlos, Southern University is a better place because of you. I mean, you called people like me out. You made us address the alumni, the public, and you kept us honest. And so although I don't like debating you, but you keep us honest. So we love you for that.
Well, I appreciate it, Tony. And besides, you were one of the few, I can only think of one other board member at that time that would come on. So
I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared of you, but I just
no. I know you're not. No, I'm just a guy that hosts a talk show. That's all. But we both can agree on this. Both love Southern University, and we just had different paths of showing that love. But hey,
oh yeah,
that's in the grand scheme of things. Well, Tony, I won't take up too much of your time. I appreciate it on a Saturday. I know you're busy. Gentlemen, and just kind of simply want to talk about liability issue with the COVID-19 with universities and athletic departments, because they're COVID-19 risk forms that universities are getting their student athletes to sign. But is there? I guess my opening question is. Should there be a concern by universities and athletic departments and even parents about this COVID-19 and from a legal and a liability standpoint?
Carlos, that's a great question, apropos, and so the bottom line answer is yes, there should be concern. Two, there is liability. Now, I have to commend our athletic director, Roman Banks. I know he's taken a somewhat of a beating with some of the opinions in the paper, but Roman is putting the best interest and the safety of those kids and their families at heart. And let me tell you, today marks the 20th day that my 18-year-old was exposed to the virus and he contracted it. And I made this little butt stay in the house. The 14th day, he's like a wild animal. He's out today. He's free. But I held him down, and my wife and I tested negative. He was asymptomatic. But the problem is my mom is 80-some years old, or 80 years old, and, his aunts and all that. So I told him, I said, son, you asymptomatic. You may not be transmitting it, but if you were to transmit it to my mom or even to me, it may have a devastating effect. So you tie that in to Southern, although those kids, 90%, they're not going to have any symptoms. But if Southern creates an atmosphere where they are contaminated and then they bring it back to their loved ones and their elderly loved ones and they die, then Southern, you got to look at that, whether or not Southern went beyond protocol to make sure that everything was done safe. Now, I think if you limit the number of athletes in the weight room, you get the little thermometers and you go through all the forms, then if Southern goes through that and check them, then I don't think liability is a problem. But if any university haphazardly brings back their teams, their players, and you expose these kids and ultimately their family members get exposed, I think you might have what we call a justiciable issue, or an issue that you can bring to court. But thank God we got Roman. Thank God he's doing it the way he is. And I don't think we will have that problem. But I think it would be somewhat pervasive in the future. You will see where these athletic programs, in a quest for money, would probably jeopardize some of these kids. So you're on to something, Carlos.
Yeah, help me out, Tony. I pulled up an article, and part of it talks about how to mitigate liability risk by common sense risk management practices. And it goes on to talk about temperature check, PPE, and all of that. So I would think universities, athletic departments are doing that. They're posting signs and relaying all that information, because if they didn't, then you would have a problem, right? If they're not following all those procedures. Am I off base?
No, you're on point, but I don't think that they're following protocol, particularly a lot of these states. For example, they're keeping it confidential, but there were 4 area high schools less than 4 days ago where they had to shut down their summer football program because a bunch of the kids were contaminated. Now, that's reckless on the part of those high schools, if you ask me. So I think you're sure you probably need to address this more than just one time. If they were to exercise good risk management, the PPEs, the temperature check, looking for symptoms, and lessen the number of people, then a school can absorb itself of any liability. However, the problem with having that mask on and working out is that it depletes your oxygen. And so when you lower your oxygen level to 80 or 90 something in a kid, that can cause organ damage. So wearing the mask is something mandatory, but you need the oxygen to replenish your muscles, and wearing a mask, working out with it, I don't know if that doesn't cause more harm than good in the long run. And maybe some medical guy can correct me on that, but that frightens me, because although I made my child wear the mask when he went outside, I let him outside. I hate to say it like this kid was some prisoner, but my wife and I would leave the home at 3 o'clock, allow him to go outside to fish or whatever he wanted to do. And then a couple hours and he'll go back in, but we'll leave the house at that time. But I told him you could take your mask on once you're outside by yourself, while he was contaminated with this virus. So luckily we don't have it, but I think we exercise. Man, I had sheets in the house from upstairs where he was, and he had to stay upstairs. But I was scared, and I made sure that we exercised every precaution so that we wouldn't be contaminated. Schools got to do the same thing.
Yeah, and we're visiting with Tony Clayton, former Southern University Board of Supervisor Chairman and board member. Now, Tony, you see the latest news is now we'll look at 2 universities, the risk forms of Ohio State University and Southern Methodist. They've required their athletes, when they come back for voluntary workout, that they have to sign a liability waiver. And the biggest question that I've gotten is, one, is that a smart thing to do without consulting with a legal advice and an attorney? And how enforceable will that be once they've signed that document?
Carlos, I hate to keep giving you credit and tell you how brilliant you are, but a liability waiver form is probably not worth the paper it's written on. Because herein, if you were to not exercise proper risk management, and you have some 18-year-old kid to say that you can't sue me for exposing you to the virus, it's a bunch of hogwash. So I would challenge that in any court, and I probably would win. Carlos, I'll give me my handkerchief and put an onion in my handkerchief and start crying in front of the jury and the judge, and I think I'll win that one. But on a serious though, I don't think it's worth the paper that it's written on. I do think we follow the lead of this this athletic chair we got. It appears that our board is supporting him wholeheartedly, and I must reiterate, I'm a fan of Southern's board. You got a good board there. That chairman doesn't always call me, but I think you got a good chairman in that Rutledge fella, and they're doing a good job up there. So
good morning.
So I like what they're doing, and I think that they're putting. I mean, some of the stuff they got in place, I understand they got Oshner coming in. They're going to have medical folks at all the buildings, the classroom, checking the kids. So Southern's doing what it needs to do to make sure those kids are safe. And so if I were a parent, I would be more than happy to have my kid go to Southern. And I hope parents hear me all around the country. Send your kids there because Southern is doing what it takes to put the kids first.
Tony, listen to the answer that you gave me about it's not worth the paper that it's written on.
Oh, I thought you liked the part where I call you brilliant, but you were telling me, okay, go ahead.
Well, Tony, you're an attorney and you're a good attorney, and I'm not going to fall for the okie doke on that one. My head is big enough. But to your point, looking at this article I pulled up, they're basically saying the same thing as far as enforcing that when you go into the court of law, if it gets to that. And then also there's the with Ohio State and SMU, they told Law 360 that they're not threatening to revoke athletic scholarships or eligibility for athletes who do not sign, but the form says they are a condition for the players using the school's athletic facility, which could prevent them from participating in athletics. How does that sound to you?
You know, that's somewhat unfair, but somewhat it has a hue of legality to it, a small amount. But because what happens once you entered into that contract with that kid, then you owe him that as long as he fulfills his duty. Now, there's something that's called a fortuitous event or an act of God. So this pandemic would be considered as a fortuitous event or an act of God, which means that university can change somewhat of your contract with you if you have a situation like this. So they can alter it, terms, and put conditions on it saying, hey, we won't let you use the facilities because you may contaminate other kids or things of that nature. But to tell him, I'm not going to let you use my facility unless you agree not to sue me is not legal. So that doesn't hold water. You can't, if you do not do what you're supposed to do and you expose my child to the virus and he exposed my grandmother, then I think you got some exposure, Ohio State, SMU, and you cannot tell that kid, if you don't agree not to sue me, you can't use my place. The hell away with you, and that's not fair, and you ought to sue them for that. Does it make sense? You agree or disagree? Because that's what the law is, whether or not reasonable people can agree. Yeah.
And that's kind of in some of the conversation. I know some young men and women, they're under 18, so they need parental involvement with that aspect. And then those who are over 18 that can sign on their own. But in my personal opinion, I think you still consult with someone before you sign anything.
Well, you don't shed your constitutional rights because you 18, 19, 20. Any kid that any parent has released to come to Southern or any other school, then the adults have a obligation, a fundamental solemn obligation to make sure those kids are never put in harm's way. And just so you can make a buck for athletics, I can give a hoot about having a football program. If one kid's going to die from that deal or somebody's going to die, it's not worth it. So I keep tooting the horn of that athletic director y'all got up there because he's right. If you got to hold off on that Bayou Classic, don't play the damn Bayou Classic. Play it outside. It doesn't need to be played in that dome. And you play it outside. If you got to play it in LSU Stadium, fine. I think the ideal place for it is at Shreveport and at Independence Stadium. It's outside, and chances are the virus is not going to just float around that in the air. It'll drop within 3 to 6 feet. Put them every seat apart, and you're not going to fill that Independence place up to capacity anyway. So if you can put 40,000 fans in there, do it. most of the fans are going to stay home and watch it because they're going to be afraid of the virus. But an outside venue, I say go Roman Banks. I'm with you 1,000,000%.
Yeah. So, boy, if I didn't know any better, I'd tell you still on the board of supervisors.
No, I'm not. I'm not going back there. I've done my time.
Yeah. So, what do you think from a personal standpoint about this season? Will it go on as scheduled? Will it be delayed? Will it start but then have delays? Is it safe to say that maybe they should push it back? And Coach Banks, I had him on the show. He really believes ideally if he could push it back to the spring, but he knows he's in the minority on that. What do you think, Tony Clayton?
I think the way they canceled the travel one up to Detroit, and the way he has it now in that outside stadium, I think we're good. I think that you can, if you notice the Chinese, they got these little helmets where you can, they'll look at you and they can pick the temperature up from you, whatever kind of little laser they got. In the courthouse in Plaquemine, we've opened court, but there are a bunch of these plexiglass deals there, and they got a machine 30 feet away, they'll point at you and they can tell you your temperature. So I think we arm some folks with these little temperature deals. I do think in the weight room we put some plexiglass in. You have to modify the school, and that's the new norm. I don't think you're going to find a vaccine for this deal for another 2 years. It takes about 2.5, 3 years. I just think the government's not telling us everything. But you can rest assured for the next 2 years, let's get ready for it. Let's plexiglass in between the little workout stations and recirculate the air. I believe that if you got one air conditioner and it's recirculating air, then you recirculate the damn virus. So, but if you have it where there's direct input with the air, and some air conditioner guy would have to do it, that it projects outward, then I think we good. So we need to visit how the air conditioners work, what units we on, some plexiglass, some masks when appropriate, and you fever checking and check them every day. And we just got to pay for it and do what we got to do. But the health, safety, and welfare of those kids is of the preeminent importance, and it should always be.
I would agree with that statement. This whole interview, when you look at not only just Coach Banks, but I've interviewed the athletic director from Alabama State, another guy Rusty Ponton at Grambling State, the director of athletics, Alabama A&M, AD, and they all stress the safety of the students and the student athletes. That's first and foremost. And so hopefully everything's going to be all right. But I just kind of wanted to get the legal, kind of a legal perspective as far as liability issues when dealing with the universities and the athletic departments and student athletes' rights as far as the legal perspective.
There's a doctor in New Orleans named Dr. Corey Hebert and our Dr. Ronnie Whitfield. Next week when you come on, I'm going to try to get one of those doctors, that particularly Corey Hebert guy. He's really on top of it. And I think you've given him a legal deal from our conversation, but I think when you bring in one of them doctors, they'll tell you about the incubation period, whether or not. So you got the World Health Organization saying that asymptomatic people, folks with no symptoms, can't transmit it, but you got the CDC saying they can. So I just think you got to give your listeners a viewpoint of what, because I'm telling you, it's going to affect you. It's affecting me now. It's my family, and then my best friend just called me and told me that his daughter was exposed to it. So it's coming your way. It's a virus. It's out there, and it's going to be hard for folks not to be affected by this deal, and it's dangerous. So, but I have to give it to people. I've noticed a bunch of African Americans, they got their masks. So we are taking it serious. Our community was hit pretty hard with it. You don't want any community to be hit with it, but callers, I have to say, I'm in the Lowe's parking lot now talking to you, and 80 to 90% of the people got their masks on, and they're adhering to it. So the state has done well by it, and you have done even better by keeping your folks on top of the issues. And we didn't argue, and I love you, Carlos. I just want you to know that, brother. There ain't nothing you can do about it.
I love you too, but I was just thinking, what would you have said? What would you say over the times that we've had discussions, we had some bang ones. Which one kind of, I'm not putting you on the spot.
Pete Richardson. I know
stands out to you.
Coach Richardson. Coach Richardson, you were mad at me because it was under our watch that we terminated Coach Richardson's deal. And the issue was not about Coach Richardson, Carlos. It was about the APR. The APR and the Coach Richardson was the worst that we've ever dealt with. And I know I'm running for DA. I hope I don't lose a vote because of that, please. But I got to be honest. And you have beat me. I love Pete Richardson, but I'm telling you, the APR matters. So that's why we did. But boy, I'm still taking a whipping from that. But thank God, Coach Richardson still talks to me, but he looks at me a little different. But at least he speaks to me. Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. Go back in the archives with the APR because I'm trying. First I'm gonna look at the timing. What in the time that he was there? It had to be at the end part. But I'm just gonna go back. There you go. You couldn't get off of this phone call without a fight. Now you no. But I kind of remember that. Now, if you ask me, I thought I know one time we really had a 2-hour show, and it kind of was with Greg LaFleur, the director of athletics. That's one, but one that I think people would remember. You remember the time the Southern game was moved out of Baton Rouge to Jackson? I think that's when we literally. Yeah. We really was on opposite sides on that one. We made $700,000 for some reason. Our folks don't come to Baton Rouge, but they would travel to Jackson. And then I was in charge of the budget, and we had a $600,000 hole. And I said, guys, let's just play the game in Jackson, and we control the gate. And we did that, and we brought in $700,000. Trust me, we did. And I know I took a beating on it, but under Louisiana law, I go to jail if we don't balance the budget. Huh? You may have won the battle, but I don't think I know I lost the war. But I didn't want to go to jail. And you have an obligation as a chairman of a board to balance that doggone budget, athletics and everything else. You can't submit where you just taking money from the public. You got to balance it. And speaking of that, Carlos, we ought to talk about this. You can't charge an athletic fee to students when you don't have any athletic programs going on. Now, I'm about to wake up a sleeping giant. Southern got a problem. Roman, you got a problem around the corner. So the kids going to wake up and say, why are we paying this when you didn't have a full basketball program, you didn't have a baseball program? Give us our money back. So I'm scared to death. You talking about millions of dollars? We about to be in a hole now. Well, isn't that in reference to also it ain't our money. The state of Louisiana? So we got a problem there. Yeah, higher education is giving back, 24? What was it? 24 million? I just saw the article maybe last week. They had to not for athletic students. No, but I mean just overall. So I guess I'm asking, would that fall into the same or similar category? I don't see the public allowing public taxpayers' money to go to a university athletic program. Now, Southern has to fund female sports. It has to fund them equally as you do the male sports. And we got problems because football is the only sport that makes money. Basketball does okay when they play these beat-up games, but it doesn't make any money. Baseball, female. So we got to really look at this deal with the Constitution saying you got to still have girls softball, girls volleyball, and everything else we got. We got some big issues facing us in terms of athletics. So I don't know what we do with that, but the problems are right around the corner. But guys like me and you, Carlos, and your listeners, we just got to dig in our pocket, come up with some money, and help save our athletic program and help save. I love athletics, and so I might want some naming rights on something again, but I'll put up a little bit more paper. But I wanted my name on something. People get mad at me about that, but I'm paying for it. Well, yeah, Tony Clayton, athletics complex. You got one right there in the front, and when I walked through it, I don't know. I felt like a spirit hit me or something. I was like, the ghost of Tony Clayton. But I'm gonna tell you what I want. I talked to Al Harrell. I want us with a big metal building where our kids can have indoor practice facility. It's gonna take us a couple of million, but you got a bunch of us around the country. We need to dig in our pockets and everybody so we can build these kids a nice indoor facility to play ball in, practice in. Yeah, and I expect you will be able to make a nice contribution, Tony, because God has been. I don't know about nice, but wait a minute, God's been good to you financially.
And that reminds me of the last thing. I remember one time, now I don't know if this was on the air or not, but it was about maybe moving out of the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
I'm still
Southern University.
Get out of SWAC.
Okay, Tony. Here we go.
I think we need to form an independent league. We don't need to go to no NEAC and all that. We form an independent league where we got schools from Dallas, schools from Lake Charles, Houston, where we can drive our kids, right? Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, and just create our own league and get out of this damn SWAC, because the SWAC to me doesn't do enough. They make money off of us. It's only Jackson and Southern that really travels. But we can drive to FAMU. Let's pick these schools up where we can put these kids on the bus. We can't afford to fly them on a plane. We can't charter a plane, but we can create at least 10 schools right now, little 200 miles radius, and create a great athletic field. Bring in the McNeese. We ain't scared of them. Bring them in, put them in our own little area, and let's create that program there where we can really make some money and make folks start coming to Southern to play us as opposed to us always hitting the road.
I'm almost speechless on that one. I think I was speechless back then when you said it the first time.
This went from liability to Louisiana football. So pretty good, fellas.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. But recap quickly about the legal perspective, what people should know. Even if you have your parent, you have kids on, participating in extracurricular activities in high school.
Okay, I mean, it's the same thing. The liability, the schools are going to face liability. Somebody's going to follow suit. But if Southern does the necessary protocol, the PPEs, the temperature check, the COVID questionnaire. I went to a concert last night down the street. Nelly was there. Nelly, I was surprised. It was Todd Graves and his family. And, man, when I walked up, they took my temperature. I had to fill out a form, and we were outside, and it was a Nelly right here in New Rose last night. It was a great little concert. But they had us all go through this screening process before they allowed us on the sand pits, it was on the banks of the Falls River. But it was a great concert. We had a great time, and we all socially distanced. And you can do it, but you just got to follow the protocol.
Yeah, well, this pandemic, it's something else, and we're going to be dealing with this as a society for a few more years, if not longer. But Tony, happy Father's Day to you. It was
Thank you, my friend.
Pleasure to have you on again, and let's talk again real soon. I'm sure it's something we can talk and debate about.
Well, I'm here to give you whatever my perspective is. But in closing, what you call us, thanks for what you do. I told you earlier, you make our university alums, you hold the leaders, you keep us honest. And I just wish you can broaden this show and take it national, syndicated, whatever you call it. But thanks for what you do, your staff, you guys who work with you. I know it's sometimes money out of your pocket, but we need you. And thanks for what you do, brother. Love y'all. Love all you guys. Call me if you need me.
All right, we'll do. I will call you. We'll do.
Take care.
All
guys.
right, thank you. That was Tony Clayton, former Southern University Board of Supervisors member, former chairman of the board, and outspoken. And he's right. We may have agreed 5% of the time, maybe less than 5%. Maybe as I'm getting older, I'm less combative. I don't know. But just kind of wanted to get a legal perspective on this whole pandemic situation, as far as it relates to athletics, university students, and student athletes. If you want to, it's law360.com. That's an article, and it's kind of talking about COVID-19 risk forms may fall flat in court. And you have some quotes from an attorney and sports management professor, like at Syracuse University. He says, I really don't think they are enforceable. Experts say schools must take precautions to ensure the health and safety of their athletes and broader campus communities, including by forcing athletes to comply with certain rules like washing hands, wearing face masks. But COVID-19 forms insofar as they attempt to make athletes waive liability against the school should those precautions not work, will likely face close scrutiny if they result in litigation. So, with that being said, Dr. Prince, I know I was supposed to have Charles Edmond on, but we just simply can't do it. When I was able to get Tony Clayton on, look, I have to get him on.
I understand.
To your point, when we converse and talk during the week, this 6 months ago, we didn't know this was going to happen, correct?
Right. At least I didn't know. You may have known, but I didn't know.
Oh, come on. No. No. But this situation is just, it's unprecedented.
It truly is.
Unknowns, uncertainty, and for the director of athletics that have come on this show and stated that safety, student athletes, safety is most important. It truly is. And Dr. Prince, we have African Americans playing for the Power 5 schools, right?
Right.
And you have white players playing for the Power 5 and on our level.
Right.
I would not put them in a position to be sacrificial lambs. And scholarships, and I'm looking at this article, Ohio State University say, well, no, we're not saying that you're going to lose your scholarship if you don't sign the waiver, but don't be a sacrificial lamb. If you're uncomfortable playing, don't play. There's still a lot of unknowns, Dr. Prince, that we don't know about young people.
Right.
Oh, they won't get it. But it could be damaged long term.
You know, another part of this that's driving things that we know money is driving it, but you know what else is driving this thing? Testosterone. It is running rampant, and you got to deal with it, and you got to put everything in its perspective. And this too shall pass, but you're not going. All you're doing is you're starting and stopping. You think you have things under control. You send people back out there, then it flares back up again, and you could never really gain control of it. And yes, we keep looking at the financial hits. You're going to get there. And I've always stated you can recover from the money, but once that life is gone, and there's nothing that you can do about that. But I do want to, man, talking about leaving the SWAC and getting 10 schools. Who you going to convince other schools to leave their conferences just to appease your Louisiana style of football?
You know what? That's Tony. And no, that's another discussion for another time. And Dr. Prince, he's been consistent ever since I've known him. He's thought that way, and he's wrong to think that way, but he can't think that way. That's his opinion. That's him. Try to make what you have and improve on it. And if we go and move up, we go together. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And whether we make it or not, whether we fail or not, we do it what? Together.
Together. United we stand, divided we fall.
Yes, sir. Why now I'm thinking about the movie Lean On Me. Before they get ready to take that big test, he got them all in that auditorium and say, we think, we swim, we make it together.
Together.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why me and Tony argue on some things. That's one of them. But it was interesting. I'm gonna get him back on, but that was a guy that we had some classic battles. I mean, if you tune in, sometimes you would have thought we were ready to go fisticuffs, and then sometimes we were on location together, right next to each other, doing the show, and it got really heated.
But y'all are behaving now, though. I'm so glad to hear y'all have a kumbaya moment.
Yeah, but if I get the opportunity, I still throw an uppercut here and there.
Oh, we know, brother. Trust me, we know.
Want to thank Wheeler Brown, Tony Clayton, Coach Pettaway. We'll talk with Charles next week. I'm sure I'll hear from him. But we simply just ran out of time. And I want to thank today's producer, as always, Dr. Michael Prince. To each and every one of you, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Be safe as always. Be really safe. Happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Appreciate all fathers. Until next Saturday at 10 a.m. for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show. Heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast and Spreaker.com. As always, peace and God bless.